want you to explain it in day-to-day people language, everyday people language, because what you've mentioned, climate, the carbon market, and the carbon credits, someone has called it wash, if you may, money laundering of climate change discussion. I don't know if you agree with that, but in a nutshell, what is a carbon market and what's a carbon credits?
So it's actually wash, and that's a good phrase to use it. But wash of the emission reductions obligations.
Okay.
It's in fact a wolf in sheep clothing. What they offer in Africa is some monies, okay? But we need to understand what Africa has been asked to do is basically to forego at least 5% of its land.
Okay.
5% of Africa's land, so that we can be able to contribute to a 2 gigaton reduction of emissions. What this means effectively is the historic polluter who's caused the climate problem will continue emitting on a business as usual way. No cuts, no decarbonization. What the planet requires today is rapid, massive reductions in emissions.
Yes.
We're on a pathway to 2.4 degrees above pre-industrial level. At the moment, our world has warmed at 1.1 degree above pre-industrial level. We can see the impacts that are hitting our planet, whether it's drought, whether it's floods, whether it's cyclone. We are suffering fast and worst the impact of climate change.
Yes.
We're bearing the greatest brunt for these impacts. So what you will expect is we'll have all hands on deck, and we will do what science says is required, which is to decarbonize at the source.
Yes.
So instead of, let's take the example of Delta Airlines. So instead of Delta Airlines cutting its emissions and shifting to cleaner energy, what they will do is buy pollution permits. And I want you to understand this.
Carbon credits.
It's not carbon credit. It's not carbon credit. That's a sexy term they've given so that they allow you to think they're giving you money and they take the credit for the carbon reductions that you will offer. You'll be able to deliver. What effectively this means is they're buying a permit from us so that they can continue to pollute. That way, instead of cutting emissions, and that is what the atmosphere needs, they will buy themselves out of the reductions.
Yes.
And that is what they've called carbon credits. And I want people to understand, from a climate perspective, there is no absolute reduction in emissions. There is a transfer of emissions from an industrialized country or company to an African community. And so from what the atmosphere sees, it's basically +1 -1. So Africa will conserve its forest so that we can protect the carbon sinks. And instead of actually rewarding us for protecting this planet's lands, they will use those emissions reductions that will have been attained through Africa's protection of our forests to be able to pollute an equivalent amount of emissions at a time when science says clearly we must cut emissions.
So in your view, we're getting the raw end of the deal, and this is not something to support?
This is something we must reject.
Okay.
But Africa cannot afford to allow the West to get away with this cheating. This is actually undermining the integrity of the environmental regime.
Do you see the goodwill to reject this collectively as Africa?
So this is a sad reality. You can imagine with this continent that is home to 17% of the global population and account for less than 4% of the historic emissions, is desperate for cash because we are home to 600 million people without electricity, 970 million Africans without clean cooking. And we want to develop our energy. We're desperate for cash, we're desperate for clean technology. And so the analogy I will give you so that you can actually understand the situation our African leaders are in is if you found yourself in the middle of a desert and you've run out of water, okay? And you're hanging there for your life and somebody offers you your urine to drink. It's an ugly analogy, but that is the situation Africans are in. We're desperate for cash.
And we're drinking that urine.
We're drinking that urine.